Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And as always, that is anyone who is interested and willing to pay attention. And sometimes that's people who listen live, which I don't see when I am doing this on my laptop. So I'm trying to notice if people are watching while I am on my phone, but I don't know how to do that. So we might just go back to the way we've always done it. Thank you to those who have been commenting, either live or later, on some of the things I've been talking about. I don't have a real controversial title today, so it's not like people are going to go, ooh, there's going to be some dirt in this. Although I do want to share some of the things that have become evident. I was going to say obvious, become evident to me in some of the work I've been doing, both client related and on myself recently. Chris and I are writing a book. We're so close. And in that process of writing that book, I have learned so much about myself. And I think Chris would say the same thing. Our book is really, really close to going to the designer and then eventually to the publisher printer. And that's really fun because this one feels different than the other ones that I've written because when I've written books in the past, it's kind of to just get my ideas out and, shipped, to use language from, I think it's Seth Godin who said that. So, I this is different because it's been a year in working on it and researching it and experimenting with some of the ideas and the languaging and all of those things. Chris and I are actually using our own process to write this book, which has been really fascinating, a bit frustrating, which is part of the journey, which is great. And I think he would say the same thing. So that has allowed me to learn a lot more about myself, which is why I want to share this today. I'm not teaching. I don't want to teach anything today. I just want to share. I'm not telling you about our framework. We're going to do that at some point. You'll learn about roots and the threads and all the things. That's great. I just want to describe what I've been noticing. And if you've watched me at all or followed me at all, you know that I'm a pretty good noticer. And I don't always articulate what I'm noticing. I'm going to try to do that today a little bit. Um, so, over the last couple of years, I would say, again, I don't know, looking back, I don't know exactly when this started, but I've been not preparing as much for the maybe sometimes even keynotes or workshops or breakouts, not preparing as much as I used to because I trust what will come to me if I'm present with the audience. And probably this goes back to my failed TED talk in 2016 where I had it all scripted and then I forgot part of it because I was reading, or in my mind, reading a script. I wasn't connecting with the people in the audience because I didn't know that's how you were supposed to do it. I thought it was about lecturing or giving a talk or whatever. And I learned so much about myself in that process. So when I look back, that's 10 years. That's 10 years of getting more comfortable with allowing than with scripting things. And so that has been a fascinating journey. And I notice when I do these lives, especially these lives, but also with people who are in audiences where I either facilitate a conversation or where I deliver, a keynote, a message. I'm noticing that things come out of my mouth that I don't necessarily bring with me. And it's a really weird and cool experience because it surprises me. I really do remember the first time this ever happened to me, and I was in Indianapolis, Indiana, speaking for an organization. I don't remember exactly what they did, but I was a speaker in Indianapolis, and I remember feeling like I was watching myself deliver this one little part of it when this person came up to me and asked me a question. And I remember feeling like I was watching myself say what I was saying. And it was just instantaneous, it was quick, but I remember thinking, whoa, that was weird. And that's where I started kind of digging into the observer effect and what does that mean to be able to notice yourself, blah, 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 more. But I kind of got curious about that then. And so as I think more about that and about the difference between I suppose I would call it forcing or pushing and allowing. It's a delicate balance and a harmony in that. And so I've been surprised by what's come out of my mouth sometimes when I do these Facebook lives because I didn't come in with it. You know, I didn't put it there. I didn't have a script that said this is what I want to share or tell or teach or facilitate. And that process for me has been really fun because it it feels right. It feels, when I say right, I mean it feels aligned. It feels kind of like what I'm here to do. It's lighter and more powerful at the same time. So they're dual energy pieces to that, right? It feels lighter. Like I go back to Dane Heer's book, which by the way I can't remember the name of right now. Dane Heer, Dr. Dane Heer, he talked about how we understand and experience energy, and he said the easiest way is heavy or light. Does it feel heavy or does it feel light? And when I notice that, I think about light and feeling powerful. The powerful part doesn't feel heavy. So it's light and powerful. So I just want to pause on that for a second. I'm sharing a lot fast. I'm talking fast, I realize when I say this, because it's kind of cool to witness my own process. Let's put it that way. And so Melissa says, I heard the best quote from a wise person. Confidence is what you tell yourself. Ego or arrogance is what you tell others. Ooh, that's so good, Melissa. This makes me feel lighter when I read that. Yes, I love that. Confidence is what you tell yourself. Ego or arrogance is what you tell others. That's so good. And I think the word there, tell, would make a difference too for me, Melissa, because telling and sharing are different for me. And sometimes I'm hired to tell, right? I'm hired to tell because somebody needs a keynote or a breakout or something. And my job in that is to tell something. I'm planning on telling you all a lot about our new book at some point. But in these lives, I don't feel like I'm telling as much as I'm sharing. And I hope you can kind of feel that distinction. And what I'm also kind of wrestling with a little bit is, to your point, Melissa, how it comes across to someone else isn't really my concern as much as it is to stay in the space of my intention. Does that make sense? To stay in the space of my intention. If you interpret what I'm saying or sharing or whatever as arrogance or ego, Melissa, that's, if my intention is pure and I'm like here to share with you, I can't own your experience of it unless there's a disconnect and something happens and I can say, wait a second, what just happened here? How did you hear what I just said? And this is especially true when I'm thinking about like facilitating with a small group or having a conversation with a friend, you know, where you're sharing something. Or I suppose in some cases, if you have kids, you have to sometimes tell and you don't get to share as much. And if you notice how they interpret it or how it occurs to them, you can actually stop and say, wait a second, what just happened here? I noticed something changed in the energy. And that to me is a way of sharing rather than telling. I can give you so many examples of that distinction. I won't do that here, but when I think back on why this topic came to me today, like why I felt that I wanted to share this today, I was looking back on some of the events that I've, what would I do? Say hosted? Yeah, events I've hosted in the past. And there was a time in I can't remember the year, 2008, I'm going to say, maybe 8, 9, and 10, where I hosted an event called the Bigger Small Talk Summit. Bigger Small Talk Summit. And it was using open space technology on the first day where I introduced this technology, the space holder, and then I allowed people to have their own conversations inside that space. And then on day 2, and by the way, this could be backwards because it might have been day 1, but on the second day of the Bigger Small Talk Summit, Dick Richards came from Arizona, and he shared his process that he called the Genius Workshop. And he helped all of us find and name our genius, which he says is the part of us that is unique to us. It's what we do when we're not thinking about it. And if we can give that a name, and his process is an ing word and a noun, a gerund and a noun. we can recognize that when I'm just being my best self, I'm occurring this way. So the label or the name that I gave mine the first time I took this workshop in, oh golly, 2006 ish, I heard Dick speak in Minneapolis at an event, and mine was inviting dialogue. Well, that should be no surprise to anyone who knows me at all. Inviting dialogue. And I remember being in that workshop, and one of the people, by the way, I'll back up a second. The process during the workshop was you would work on these activities and deep dives into what makes you you, and then you'd put a name on a name tag, and then you'd walk around the room and you'd talk to somebody else, and you'd introduce yourself as if that your genius was you, and then the other person would say, tell me more about that. And it was a really cool process. And I remember coming up with inviting dialogue and feeling really like this is it. And the guy that I happened to talk to first said, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so I have a question for you. What if it's inviting and you invite somebody and they don't show up? I don't think it's inviting, he said. And I went, ah, oh, dang. Then I rethought it, and I thought, oh, well, let me ponder. I didn't say that this at the time. Don't, well, let me ponder that. That's what I've said since. But I started rethinking it, and I started thinking, well, he must know better than I, because that was sort of the space I was in for a long time in my career. And what happened for me in the process of the rest of that workshop was I tried on different words. I said, is it, I can't even remember what the words were, but it was not inviting. And at the end of the day, I came back to inviting because I said, you know what? My whole thing is I'm going to invite you into dialogue. Whether you accept the invitation is not the point. My job is to invite you into dialogue. And I use, as you know, the definition that I first learned from David Bohm's work. I can tell you exactly where I had that aha, but it's about suspending previous assumptions in order to learn from and with each other. And so inviting dialogue was my genius, still is to this day, this many years later, because I know that's my thing. That's my thing. That's what I do. And I'll invite you, but you don't have to accept the invitation. Just know that when I'm inviting you into that dialogue, right? I'm inviting you into dialogue. Whether you want to be in a discussion or a debate is up to you. So that, bigger small talk. And then 2023, I created this event called Chill Out, which you might have heard about. Chill Out was an opportunity for me to bring my favorite people together in one room, have some of them share their ideas with you, and then engage with you. So they might share an idea. Chris was there, Tony was there, but a bunch of cool people would come together. Melissa, you were there one year, or 2 years, I guess. And they would share their story. They would share what they were working on. And then it wasn't to teach you something necessarily, it was to share something with you. And then they would stay in the room, meaning through all the other people who were sharing an idea. And then through the breaks or afterwards over dinner, then the conversations would really come alive. We'd go out to dinner together. This is my goal for that, I guess. And I loved that event. The third year we did it, which was last year, we used a different format. We used open space because back in 2008, when I first did that the first time, I loved it. By the way, let me just say what open space is. Open space has 4 principles. Whoever's here is the right people. Whoever's here is the right people. Whenever it starts is the right time. Whatever happens here is the only thing that could have happened. And when it's done, it's done. I love those 4 principles, 4 rules, 4 whatever you want to call them. That's the space held for open space, right? Whoever's here is the right people. And I think about that on these Facebook Lives. Whoever's here is the right people, whether you're watching live or later, whether you're commenting or just observing, none of that matters because this is a space where I want people to feel safe to explore, examine, ponder, wonder, give me more things to think about. Maybe I don't have it all figured out. I don't, obviously, most times. And I'm open to share where I am in the process. And so if I can stay above the line as much as possible, which is open, curious, committed to learning, that helps me so much. And we talked earlier about feeling lighter. It feels so much lighter to be conscious, to be above the line. Because below the line, it's heavy. It's where gravity pulls me down, right? Below the line is closed, defensive, and committed to being right. There are so many opportunities to be right now, right? I know right. I did the research. I learned the thing. Listen to me. Oh, golly, that's heavy to me. That's heavy. I don't want to be in that space. I will take what you share with me and I will do my best to understand it. And if it doesn't resonate with me or if I can't make sense of it for myself, I'll tell you. I had a friend last night who shared a video with me, and the video was really it was 16 minutes long and it was about topics I don't know anything about. I probably should, but I didn't. So I he said, "What do you think about this?" or "What are your thoughts about this?" And it was shared in a message somewhere. And so I dug in and I really took it apart and I did some research and I figured things out for myself so that I could better understand it. It reminds me kind of a story I heard about. I'm going to say it was Gandhi, maybe. A woman came to Gandhi because he was a big leader, leader, I'll just say, at the time. And this woman said to Gandhi, "Will you help me uh, tell my son he shouldn't be eating so much sugar?" And Gandhi said, "Come back to me in 2 weeks." And she said, "Okay." And she came back to him in 2 weeks and she said, "Okay, now will you help me tell my son not to eat so much sugar?" And he said, "Yes. When you came to me the first time, I was eating sugar. So I had to, he didn't say it in this much detail, but I had to stop eating sugar so I could share that with your son in an authentic way." And that's what I feel I've been doing my best to emulate. I'm not going to tell you my opinion about something if I haven't done any research about it, especially if I don't know anything about it. I do have my opinions about things, of course I do. And I will share them. Yet I know that opinions are the cheapest commodity on earth and people are willing to share theirs at the drop of a hat. Opinions are one thing, I suppose. Facts are another. And I'm not interested in polarizing. You know that about me too. Um, and I look back on Chill Out and Bigger Small Talk and the mastermind groups I facilitated. I bet we have more than 1,000 people that have been part of a Think and Grow Rich mastermind group in the last, can I say like almost 20 years? I've been doing this work for a long time. And I've noticed as I look back, I've always gone first. No, I shouldn't say always, usually. A lot of times. I've gone first because I just don't know how not to. It doesn't mean everybody needs to follow or everybody needs to do what I'm doing. It's just my curiosity has pulled me into that space. And so when I look back, I've always been, I'm going to say, about 10 years ahead. I do something, I have an event, I get involved in something, and then people don't catch on, so I try something else. Because I've told you before that my one thing I want more than anything is connection. I want to understand how we can come together in things, not how we separate. And so that's been true for me forever. And so I've been holding this space for people for so long. I have a tattoo on my arm that says Isumatak, if you can see that. And it's the Inuit word that means the person who holds the space for wisdom to emerge. And I've been holding space for other people's wisdom to emerge for a long time. And I haven't always shared what I feel is coming through me sometimes because I don't bring it with me. I haven't shared that until, the past couple of years. Lately, like really lately, I've been taking notes while I'm facilitating meetings. Thank goodness for Zoom notes when I have coaching calls because I don't have to worry about writing things down. I can be present with my coaching clients. That's been so helpful because it captures the essence of the meeting so that I can be present. Recently, though, when it's me talking, I love doing these Facebook Lives because I can go back later and watch them and see if there was something that I could learn from what was coming through me instead of what I brought with me. And that's been a really different experience. So it feels lighter to me because I'm not trying so hard to be right and accurate and accepted and say the right words and, not hurt anybody's feelings or whatever. When I can make sure that you understand the distinction between sharing and telling, maybe this is sharing. This is you being my safe space to share. And I appreciate you for that, all of anybody who's watching live or later. And what I'm learning about that is it's probably not a huge number of people who are interested in this, and that's okay. I used to think I have to change so that everybody can understand me because I don't know why. I can look back and make all kinds of reasons for that, but what I understand as, I'm getting clearer about Everett Rogers' work and the law of diffusion of innovations, the 13.5% are the early adopters, and they're the ones that I'm looking to engage with. The people who don't need it to be all perfect and shined up before we can share it. That's what the next 34% do. The early majority, they will wait till it's shined up. They will wait till it's been proven. I'm more interested in having these kinds of conversations with people who don't care if it's not perfect. And that's a big thing for me to say because I'm a recovering perfectionist. I've always, as a younger person, haven't gone first necessarily because it wasn't perfect. And so that process for me has been kind of a painful one at times because there are a lot of people who are out there wanting to judge. Again, like you said, Melissa, it's not yours to own if it's not. Confidence is what you tell yourself. Ego or arrogance is what you tell others. And I would bet that there's a little bit of ego in what others tell you. Meaning, if they are telling you how dumb you are, or they're telling you that, you can watch any kind of conversation that's divisive on social media right now, and boy, there are a lot of people ready to tell you how dumb you are. I have been called all kinds of names, and yet I'm learning not to own what's not mine to own. And that's a big deal for me. That's been really, really interesting. So, what it's teaching me is integration or allowing my intuition or my higher self or the best part of me to come into my understanding. Integrating, allowing, whatever word you want to say, feels very different than performance. And going back to my TED Talk, my real TED Talk, the real one that I forgot. And that one in 2016 was really, showed me a lot of distinction between performance and integration or allowing. Um, so embodied things that feel right in my body, embodied leadership as an example, feels very different because it's going first no matter whether people are coming with you or not. And that feels very different than having a polished marketing message. And I, not everybody will get that because there will be those people who are there to shoot down the ideas. I think that's what some people are here to do, to prove to us that we really do want what we're talking about or really are committed to what we say we're committed to. And sometimes those people who are dream stealers are doing it from their own insecurities and their own lack of confidence in their own abilities. I don't judge that anymore. I don't take that if it's not mine to take. I recognize it and go, I know, I remember that. I have been there. So I think maybe at some point the wisdom that I've been listening to and for is my own. I know that sounds kind of odd, but maybe when we can stop interrupting our own selves and allow things to flow through us without having to be perfect, and then having an opportunity to hear it later, or free writing is a great way to do this too, just allowing yourself to write without editing it, and then you can read it later. That's where a lot of those internal critics can be excused from the process. Please don't get in the way. I'm listening to wisdom right now. I know that. Again, I don't have the words for all of this yet. I'm working on it. But if we can practice being present, like I told you earlier about my coaching clients, be present with the people and allow your listening to invite people to share in a different way, then that presence, it's like a present, right? That presence can allow other people's wisdom and intelligence and unformed thoughts to be articulated. How else do we get better at things unless we practice? And if we haven't got a safe space to practice some of these kind of ethereal concepts, how could we ever get better at them? And I'm really committed to that. So I'm wondering if anybody who's listening live or later has ever had that experience of hearing something come out of your mouth and you go, where'd that come from? Because that is really cool. And that happens in some of these spaces that are set up to be mastermind spaces instead of like book clubs or study groups. And if we allow the mastermind to enter the conversation, we invite the dialogue, it's pretty amazing what each of us can experience. We talked about that on a mastermind call I had this morning. My friend David hosted an event in Atlanta a few years ago, and we were sitting around a table in the dining room after the breakfast. There were only like 9 of us, and we couldn't get up from that table because everything was just magic. It was like nobody brought any agenda items. We didn't do this on purpose either, by the way. We only experienced it in the moment and then talked about it later. And we said, what was that? That was so amazing. We talked about so many things that were so distinct from something we would have figured out on our own. And that, we talked about that this morning and said, we need to see if we can just at least set up the experience of that where people have the opportunity to feel what that's like. Kathy says, communities of practice in action. Yes, communities of practice in action. Communities of practice in action. Where are you seeing that in your own life? Are you? What do you think might happen if you trusted that more? Just trusted that possibility. Could it be that something might need to be born through you that you could then experience in a different way than if you're the one just, on the agenda all the time? Dawn, magic is such a wonderful experience. That's why I have to bring a notebook to these types of gatherings. I want to savor the conversation. Dawn, you are the best, man. Dawn has notebooks for every conversation she and I ever have, I think. And I love how you take notes, Dawn, because I get that. I want to savor the conversation. I totally, yes. That's why today I was on a phone call with a friend of mine and I was seriously taking notes while he and I were talking. And I was not in a Zoom call, so I couldn't see him. I could just hear him. And so I was typing it on my iPad. He didn't know I was doing that. I was doing it so I could savor the conversation. I love the way you said that. So that I could go back later and go, oh, he and I came up with some amazing ideas today. And I think he was driving. And yeah, he was. Because when he stopped at a drive-through to get some breakfast. And he said, I'm going to put you on mute for a second. It was really fun because it was in the moment. But he and I had a conversation that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been him and it hadn't been me and it hadn't been that energy we were in the conversation. And so I have the notes from that, which are really cool. Vera, I think the mind opener might be your new nickname. The way you talk keeps opening doors in my head I didn't know were there. I love that, Vera. Yes, I think that is something that I'm learning to own. And I have a friend, John. No, it's not John. Let me think who it is. It's Ian. Love Ian. My friend Ian told me one time, when I have a conversation with you, Jodee, I feel like you punched me in the brain. And I think that's funny. And so when I love getting together with Ian, and we allow those things to happen because the conversations go in ways we didn't plan. So Vera, yeah, I think that is what I love to witness. And then when you, Vera or Dawn or Melissa or Kathy, whoever's here, when you do the same thing for me, when you allow me that same space to work things out, even when they're not perfect, that's where the best of us comes together. Not the ones that, not the feeling that is, Jodee, you said that word wrong. I think there's a lot of judgment happening or a lot of gotcha bombs wanting to be thrown out because I think what you said earlier, Melissa, about ego being about being right instead of allowing things. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of people out there that are running around in fear-based energy that they don't even know. They're below the line. They're unconscious. Dawn says punched in the brain. I know. That was Ian's. It was so funny. It was funny. Vera says, in a productive way, yes, it's a punch. Well, thank you for that. I would never want to punch somebody to hurt them. And this is Ian saying it, not me. I would never feel like I wanted to punch somebody in the brain, but he comes back. And he and I together, I just love the conversations. I could say that from all of you who have commented here. The conversations I've had in person with every single one of you here have been enriching and enlivening and help me see things I didn't see if it weren't for the combination of us. So I want to remind all of us that our listening is that important. It's that important. And if we're listening to be present, that's so different than if we're listening to respond. And where do we get to practice that? We just, I have created spaces, the ones I told you about, where I guess I'm in 3-year cycles, I guess, because I did 3 years of the Bigger Small Talk Summit and I did 3 years of the Chill Out event. I'm not sure. I don't have this figured out, you guys. I don't have this figured out. I don't know exactly what the outcomes will be. I love the term cottywomple. Cottywomple. I'm cottywompling this, right? I'm going purposefully toward a vague destination. I'm traveling purposefully toward a destination that isn't exactly figured out yet, but I'm pretty confident in the vague direction. And I'm just noticing what I'm noticing, and it feels right. And so thank you for everybody who's been here today. I have a meeting in 5 minutes that I'm facilitating, so I need to run. But I appreciate your having been here, and I will say, like I always do, please, 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 this week, find a way to get real. You don't have to do all 4: radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused. But find one way to say, I'm going to be more radical this week. I'm going to get back to the root. Energized, authentic, learning focused. And then just notice. Just notice what you notice. So Dawn, maybe it's not to be figured out, but simply experienced and lived. Mic drop. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are awesome. Talk to you again.